The Last Ride, the legend of the ghost train. The small town of Riverfall has always been known for its legends. One of the most terrifying stories passed down by the locals is about the ghost train. They say that every year, on the night of the seventh moon, the faint sound of wheels clattering echoes through the air. But the railway has been abandoned for decades. The tracks are rusted, and the last train departed over 50 years ago. The local Herald tells the story with amazement. The story revolves around a group of young people, Jason, Lily, Mark, and Emily. They decided to investigate if the legend was true. Jason, a city photographer, was always seeking to capture something extraordinary. Lily, fascinated by the mystical, couldn't resist the chance to encounter ghosts. Mark and Emily were more skeptical but joined out of curiosity. The night was cold and a dense fog blanketed the surroundings, adding to the tension. The friends arrived at the old station at midnight. The abandoned building looked eerie, broken windows, peeling paint, and a wooden sign with the barely legible name Enfield. Suddenly, the air filled with a strange noise. In the distance, they heard a metallic screech, as if an old engine was being started. As they moved closer to the tracks, a glow emerged before them. The light grew brighter, and moments later, a train burst through the fog. It appeared to be from another era. Black carriages, golden lettering shimmering, and steam billowing from an antique locomotive. But the most unsettling sight was the shadows visible through the windows, silhouettes of people who stood motionless, staring into nothingness. Unable to resist her curiosity, Lily stepped closer. The door of one of the carriages creaked open, as if inviting them in. Jason, holding his camera, entered first, followed by the others. Inside, it was surprisingly clean, as though the train had just rolled off the factory floor. But the atmosphere was oppressive. Time seemed to slow, and they could only hear their own footsteps and breathing. Each seat had personal belongings left behind, old hats, umbrellas, and briefcases, yet there were no passengers. Emily picked up a book lying on one of the seats and gasped when she noticed the date. October 17, 1903. That was the day the Enfield 313 train derailed, killing all its passengers. Lily found an old newspaper with the headline, "Tragedy of the Century." As the friends decided to leave, the carriage door suddenly slammed shut. A whistle sounded outside and the train began moving. Panic set in. They tried to open the doors, but they wouldn't budge. Outside the windows, scenes of the past flashed by. Vintage buildings, people in 19th century clothing. Yet none reacted to their screams. Eventually, the train stopped at a station that didn't exist on any map. Stepping out, the friends found themselves in a completely different time. The locals who surrounded them looked peculiar, pale faces and empty eyes. A tall man in a conductor's uniform said, "You are now part of our journey." They attempted to flee, but the fog enveloped them from all sides. Returning to the train, they realized that the only way forward was to continue the ride. Jason took one last photo to prove to himself that this was real. But his camera no longer worked, and all the images he had taken vanished. The next day, locals found an abandoned camera on the platform of the old station. There was no sign of the group. The legend of the ghost train gained new details. Now the elders warn that if you ever hear a train at night, don't try to board it. Otherwise, you will become part of the last ride, from which there is no escape.